Good day, everyone, especially to my instructor, Mrs. Levy Maybero. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Jifi Ismail Bisizar, a 20 years old. I live in Barangay Santiago, Procinco, Hingog City. A second year college in a course of Bachelor of Science in Criminology, currently studying at Hingog City Colleges. I am here to discuss about the theories of crime causation. There are 6 types of theories of crime causation. The first is classical theories of crime causation. The second is psychological theories of crime causation. The third is sociological theories of crime causation. The fourth is economic theories of crime causation. The fifth is biosocial theories of crime causation. And lastly, political social conflict theories of crime causation. And I will also give my output and outcomes at this activity. First is to learn and to be trained in building up my self-confidence in conducting a report. Second, theories of crime causation can help me in how to respond in times we encounter this kind of behavior. Number 3, we will be able to gain more knowledge and learn new ideas on how to deal and identify different behaviors inside this society. We will be tackling the first classical theories of crime causation. In classical theory, human behavior, including criminal behavior, is motivated by hedonistic rationality in which actors weigh the potential pleasure and action against possible pain associated with it. Letter A. Rational choice theory can apply a variety of areas including economics, psychology, and philosophy. This theory states that individuals use their self-interest to make choices that will provide them the greatest benefit. People weigh their options and make choices they think will serve them best. Philosopher Adam Smith is considered the originator of rational choice theory when faced with a decision of brand of cereal buy at a supermarket. The consumer will always choose the option which will give them the greatest level of utility. For example, sa paggawa ng kahit anong bagay, dapat nating isaisip kung ano ang kahinatnan at kahantungan nito. That's what we called a rational theory. Letter B. Routine activity theory, subfield of crime opportunity theory that causes in situation of crime. It was proposed by Marius Felsen and Lawrence E. Cohen in their explanation of crime rate changes in United States between 1947 and 1974. The theory has been extensively applied and has become one of the most cited theories in criminology. It studies crime as an event closely related crime to its environment routine. Activity theory looks at crime from offender's point of view. Letter C. Let's proceed to lifestyle theory. Asserts crime is both a propensity, a development process, and a career criminal and criminal career paradigms rather than being diametrically opposed and actually complementary. Example, someone with a gambling or substance addiction could be an easy victim by a con artist. The lifestyle exposure theory was developed by Hendelang, Goffredson, and Garofalo. For example, may isang mayaman na tao na nagdeposito sa kanyang pera sa bangko at sumakay siya sa kanyang sasakyan at wala siyang kasama kahit bodyguard lang. Nagdala siya ng 100,000 para magdeposito sa bangko. Sa kapabayaan, namataan siya ng isang kawatan at holdupper na walang bodyguard at doon nagresulta ang kanyang kapabayaan. Na-hold up siya at binaril ayon, namatay. Letter D. General deterrence and specific deterrence theory. General deterrence defined as the impact of the threat of legal punishment of the public and large specific deterrence tailored to the individuals who committed a crime. Two utilitarianism philosophers of the 18th century, Cesare Beccaria and Jeremy Bentham, formulated the deterrence theory as the both explanation of crime and method for reducing. Example, may isang drug lord na nadakip at nahatulan ng selya elektrika. Isa itong alarma sa lahat ng publiko na kung magkakasala ng kaso na ito, yan ang mangyayari. Isa rin ito sa rason ba't ganito ginagawa nila para matakot at hindi na sila magtangkang maggawa ng kasalanan na labag sa batas. Letter E. Precipitation theory suggests that the characteristic of the victim precipitate the crime is a criminal could single out victim because the victim is uncertainly ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, gender, or gender identity. It was first presented by Hans von Hantig, 1941. For example, sa sobrang pagsasyabu ng isang binatilyo, pumunta ito sa basketball court at nagwala. Dala-dala ang isang kutsilyo. Dahil sa kasabugan at marami ng napurwisyo ng mga tao at maari siya ay madakip or mapatay sa mga tanod or sa pulis. Letter F. Incapacitation theory. Incapacitation theory standards to reason if more criminals are sent to prison or keeping known criminals out of circulation, crime rate should go down. This theory focuses on removing the ability of the offender to commit future crimes. Number 2, psychological. Let's proceed to the psychological theories of crime causation. Their theory suggested that people differ in their underlying criminal tendencies, and that whether the person chooses to commit a crime in any situation depends on whether unexpected benefits of offending are considered to outweigh the expected cost. Letter A. Psychodynamic theory of psychosexual stages of human development. Psychodynamic theory, also known as psychoanalytic psychotherapy, helps clients understands their emotion and conscious patterns of behavior. Freud created this theory. Psychosexual stages of human. Oral stage, birth to 1 year. Anal stage, 1 to 3 years. Phallic stage, 3 to 6 years. Latency stage, 6 to puberty. Genital stage, puberty to adult. To audit. Example, may isang taong naglalakad sa isang bangko at may nakita itong pitaka na may cheque at identification card. At may halaga itong 1 million. At nagdadalawang isip siya kung isasauli ba or hanapin ang may-ari or iuwi na lang sa kanila ang pera. Letter B. Behavioral theory. Popular concept that focuses on how students learn. Behaviorist B.F. Skinner described operant conditioning as the process in which learning can occur through reinforcement and punishment. John B. Watson, 1878 and 1958, originally created behavioral theory. Letter C. Social learning theory suggests that social behavior is learned by observing and imitating behavior of other. Psychologist Albert Bandua developed the social learning theory as an alternative earlier work of fellow psychologist B.F. Skinner, known for his influence of behaviorism. For example, sa palaging pagbubog ng ama sa kanyang anak, maaari itong gayahin ng kanyang anak na lalaki pag ito na ay merong pamilya. Letter D. Cognitive theory. An approach of psychology that attempts to explain human behavior by understanding your thoughts process. Thought are primary determinants or emotion and behavior. Jim William, Fritz Piaget, 1896 and 1980, is the Swiss psychologist who was first to make a systematic study of acquisition of understanding in children based on a cognitive development theory. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay, for example, ikaw ay nagagaling sa magwapo na at mabuti na magalang pa na pamilya. Ito rin ay madadala mo hanggang sa paglaki mo. Letter E. Development theory. Focuses on how children develop morality and moral reasoning. Kohlberg theory suggests that moral development occurs in a series of 6 stages. These 6 stages are: Stage 1. Obedience punishments. It talks about avoiding punishment and obeying rules. Stage 2. Self-interest. Interest shifts to rewards rather than punishment. Effort is made secure greatest benefit for oneself. Stage 3. Conformity and interpersonal accord. The good boy, girl level effort is made secure approval and maintain friendly relationship with others. Stage 4, we have the authority and social order. Orientation toward fixed rules. The purpose of morality is maintaining the social order. Number 5, or stage 5, social contract. Morally right and legally right are not always the same. Utilitarianism, rules that make life better for everyone. Stage 6, universal principles. Morality is based on principles that transcends mutual benefit. Letter F. Intergenerational transmission theory. Excuse me, ma'am. Refers to transfer of individual abilities, traits, behavior, and outcomes for parents to their children. Economics have largely focused on intergenerational transmission of educational attainments, earning and income, wealth, fertility, decision, and welfare receipt. For example, kapag meron ka isang sanggol na may ama, ina, kapatid na babae at lalaki na kriminal at tulisan, maaring paglaki ng bata ay magiging katulad din ito sa kanila. Letter D or letter G. Alternative theory. Alternative theory focuses on assortative mating, where female offenders tend to cohabit with or get married to male offenders. There are 2 classes of explanations why similar people tend to get married and cohabit or become sexual partner. Example, social homogamy and phenotypic assortment. Letter H. Let's proceed to letter H. Differential association reinforcement theory. In criminology, differential association is a theory developed by Edwin Sutherland, posing that through interaction with others, individuals learn the values, attitudes, technique, and motives for criminal behavior. For example, meron kang isang kasintahan na sigarilyo at sasabihan mo mo lang itong okay lang yan, babe. At ang feeling naman ng kasintahan mo, okay lang dahil kinokonsidera mo ito at pinupuri mo pa siya sa kanyang ginagawa. At hindi niya alam ang kakahantungan nito ay isang sakit na malala. Wala ka nang magawa dahil ito ay nagiging sobra or mas naging malala. Let's proceed to letter I. Async conditioning theory argues strongly that logical predisposition towards certain personality traits combined with conditioning as socialization during childhood in order to create personality. Async, well-known personality researcher, proposed that every essential dimension or one's personality involve basis. Excuse me. G. Integrated theory. Way to recognize communalities in the theories to make synthesize or of the theories in order have a single theory that superior to any those individual theories. Integrated theory has been proposed by James Q. Wilson and Richard Julius Bernstein. They explain predatory street crime by showing how human nature developed from interplay or psychological, biological, and social factors. Example, sinabi dito, ang krimen ay nakabase ito sa society. Kung gaano kadami ang tao sa society, ganun din ang tendency na madami ang krimen at kriminal. Letter K. Maternal deprivation and attachment theory. John Bowlby's material deprivation hypothesis suggests that the continual eruption of the attachment between infant and primary caregiver could result in a long-term cognitive and social emotional difficulties for the infant. Let's proceed to number 3. Sociological theories of crime causation. According to the social learning theory, juveniles learn to engage in crime in the same way to learn to engage conforming behavior. Through association with or exposure to others, primary or intimate groups like family and peer group have an especially large impact what we learn. Social organization theory was created by Chicago-based sociologists Clifford R. Shaw and Henry D. Mackay, who link crime rates to neighborhood and ecological characteristic. Shaw and Mackay maintain contention is the primary causes of criminal behavior, where neighborhood disintegration and slum conditions place which they call transitional neighborhoods or places ridden by poverty. For example, sinasabi dito na kapag ang isang barangay ay maraming corrupt na lideres at mga kawatan at ang mga kriminal ito ay isang example or hemplo ng disorganisasyon. Let's proceed to concentric zone theory. Was pioneered by Chicago School sociologist Ernest W. Bogues and Robert E. Park. However, it was Clifford R. Shaw, Henry D. Mackay who noted distinct ecological area had developed in the city of Chicago, comprising a series of 5 concentric circles of zones, and that there were stable and significant differences in interzone crime rates. For example, ibig sabihin, ang kataasan o ratings ng krimen na mangyayari taga-5 zone. Let's proceed to anomy theory. David Emil Durkheim, French sociologist, introduced a term anomy, which derived from a Greek word nomos, which means without norms in criminology. The idea of anomy is that a person chooses criminality activity because the individual believes that there is a reason, not in other words, the person is alienated, fees worthless under efforts to try and achieve anything. Else are fruitless. Robert K. Merton, American sociologist, studied the cause of anomy or normalness, finding it severe, and people lack an acceptable means of achieving their personal goals. For example, mga taong walang mataas na pag-asa at puro na lang krimen imbes gawin nila yung mabuti at mangarap. Ito ang mga taong gusto lang ang madali. Ang lahat hindi sila gusto maghirap, pero sa kanilang ginagawa sobra pa sila sa mahirap. Let's proceed to strain theory. American sociologist Robert K. Merton proposal, the pressure derived from social factors such lack of income, lack of quality of education drives individual to commit crime. For example, ito yung taong walang edukasyon at gabay ng isang magulang na mabuti at din silang mabuting trabaho. Kaya ito ang nagpupursige sa kanila na magiging kriminal. Relative deprivation theory. This theory by Judith R. Blow and Peter M. Blow, as defined by social theorist and political scientist, relative deprivation theory suggests that people who feel are being deprived of something considered essential their society. Carl Polanyi argued that the relative difference in economic wealth, understood as subject deprivation, are more important than absolute difference in wealth. For example, may isang pamilya na mahirap at mayaman. Ang pamilyang mayaman ay palagi na lang kumakain ng masarap, like Jollibee, McDonald's at iba pang sikat na kainan. Ang ama ng mahirap na pamilya ay nainggit na dahil wala siyang kakayahan na bilhan ng kanyang anak ng masarap at sikat na pagkain. Kahit na lang man sa birthday nito. Kaya siya ay nag-decide or nagpasya na nakawan ang pamilya ng mayaman. General strain theory. General strain theory, sociologist Robert Agnew reformulated the strain theory of Robert Merton and suggests the criminality is the direct result of negative affective states, anger, frustration, depression, disappointment, and adverse emotion. The derived from strain stars that strain increase the likelihood of crime. Particular strain that are high magnitude are the same pressure and creative for criminal coping. Crime is one possible response. For example, parang magkaparehas lang din ito sila sa relative deprivation. Nang dahil sa isang kainggitan at walang kakayahan na makakagawa ka ng masama o kaya magnakaw. Cultural deviance theory suggests that conformity to the prevailing cultural norms of lower class society causes crime. Clifford Shaw and Henry Mackay developed theory that has been called both social disorganization theory, which state that individuals isn't responsible for their deviance as much as the community within they reside. Delinquent subculture theory suggests that conformity to the prevailing cultural norms of lower class society causes crime. Clifford Shaw and Henry Mackay developed theory has been called social disorganization. Theory which state the individuals isn't responsible for their deviance, much as the community within which they reside backgrounds who have few opportunities for success will use any means at their disposal achieve success. Developed by Richard Cloward and Lloyd Olin. Let's proceed to drift theory. Neutralization theory is identified with the writings of David Matza and his associate. Gresham M. Sykes recognized that juvenile delinquents hold conventional values attitude. They are aware and their delinquents' actions are views by society as deviant. Example, ito yung mga lower class kung saan ang kabilang mga binata ang nagbebenta at matanda kung saan bumubuo ng grupo para makapakuha yung conflict gang. Ito yung mga grupo kung saan hindi sila nakasundo, ibang grupo na gang nakipagbakbakan sila gamit ang baril or mga kagamitan na nakapatay, handa silang ibuwis ang buhay para maprotektahan sa kanilang samahan. Retrist gang, itong klaseng gang na ito, sa tinitest muna yung ability or skills mo kung karapat-dapat ka ba sa pangkat. For example, inuutos kanila pumatay, sinunod mo yung utos nila pero hindi mo nagawa ng maayos. Denial of responsibility. Ito yung taong dinideny ng kasalanan niya dahil napilitan lang siyang gawin yung mga kasalanan niya. Denial of injury. Ito yung mga kung saan sinasabi niya na may ginawa siyang mali pero wala naman daw siyang sinaktan. Denial victim. Sinisisi naman yung victim, for example, lasing yung victim tapos pinagtripan yung offender. Kaya gumawa ng krimen yung offender dahil gumawa daw ng mali si victim. Excuse me. Condemnation of condemners. Ito yung criminal na sinasiraan yung mga nakaupo sa gobyerno, nakipagtalo siya sa judge. Ang mga politikal at pulis daw ay ng corrupt appeal to higher loyalties. Ito yung rason isang offenders for them to para mabawasan ang kanilang guilty. Criminal, sinisiraan yung nakaupo sa gobyerno at nakipagtalo sa judge ng mga political police daw ay ng corrupt. Appeal to higher loyalties, yung rason ng isang offender for them para mabawasan ang kanilang guilty. Let's proceed to containment theory, form of control theory proposed by Walter Reckless in the 1940s and 1960s. According to Reckless, outer containment and a tractional better that holds the person in bounds can be found in following components: a rule that provides guides for the person activities, a set of reasonable limits, responsibilities, and opportunity for individual achieve status, a sense belonging. Identification with one person within a group of containment or personal control ensured by a good self-concept, self-control, a strong ego, a well-developed conscience, a high sense of responsibility. Example, si Jiffy ay isang law enforcer. Sinabihan siya ni LeBron James na pumunta sa isang nightclub para magparty at maglasing si Jiffy. Si Jiffy ay isang law enforcer. Hindi siya pumunta dahil kadalasan ng mangyari ang gulo at barilan ay nasa nightclub. So, hindi siya na-involved sa tinatawag na delinquency. Social bond theory proposes the exploiting process of socialization. Social learning builds self-control and reduces inclination to indulge in behavior. Recognize the anti-social Travis with the touchy causes of delinquency, now the dominant version of control theory, elements of social bond theory. Attachment, dapat nating suportahan ang magulang. Teacher, bigyan ng gabay ang atensyon para sa tuwid na daan. Commitment, dapat ituwid ang bata patungo sa eskwela, edukasyon para lumaking husto at tama ang bata. Involvement, dapat ang isang bata ay mabigyan ng role or activities. Ang isang bata, halimbawa, like basketballs at iba pang uri ng sports. Belief, isa sa sandigan ng lahat ay ang pagtitiwala sa itaas. Lahat ng ating karanasan na masama ay papatnubayan ng may kapal. At siya ay ang tanging sandigan pag wala na tayong pupuntahan. Social reaction, labeling theory, posits the self-identity and the behavior of individual may be determined of influence by the terms used to classify them, focuses on the linguistic tendency of majority group to negatively label minority group. Are this seen as a deviant from norms? It was created by Howard S. Becker, who explained the society creates deviance through a system of social control. Agencies that is designated label certain individuals as delinquent, thereby stigmatizing a person and encouraging them to accept this negative personal identity. For example, ito ay isang natapos na niya na asistensya na nagawa niyang kasalanan at nilabas na siya sa kulungan at nilagay siya sa komunidad. At doon nagkaroon ng judgment at pangit na pagtrato sa mga tao sa kanya. Primary and secondary deviance, Edwin M. Lamert. According to him, primary deviance involves norm violation or crimes that have very little influence on the actor and can be quickly forgotten. In contrast, secondary deviance occurs when a deviant event comes to the attention of significant others or social control agents who apply negative label. Let's proceed to number 4. Economic theories of crime causation. The roots of crime diverse and is discipline like economics predicated and on rational behavior may be something of a disadvantage in explaining a phenomenon. Largely viewed and irrational, the roots of crime diverse discipline like in economics predicated on rational behavior may be something disadvantage explaining a phenomenon largely as irrational. Letter A. Economic model of criminal behavior, basic theory. The Economic Model of Crime, 1968 by Gary S. Becker, 1930-2014 is standard model decision making where individuals choose between criminal activity and legal activity based on expected utility from the acts. Number 1, the expected gains from crime, relative earnings from legal work. Number 2, the chance, risk of being caught and convicted. Number 3, the extent punishment. And number 4, the opportunities in legal activities. Letter B, Karl Marx theory. Karl Heinrich Marx is his famous Communist Manifesto views crime as a product of law enforcement policies of labeling process theory. He also connection between criminality and the iniquities found in a capitalist system. He states that its development had turned work into dehumanized mass who live in existence that was a mercy of them. Capitalist employers, the Marxist theory, claim that it is not necessary to have particular amount of wealth, prestige to a member of capitalist. It is more important to have power to exploit economically and legally socially. Letter C. Friedrich Engels and Wilhelm Burger's theory. Excuse me. Friedrich Engels, 1820 to 1895, in his work, Condition of the working class of England's 1844 portrayed crime as function of social demoralization, a collapse people humanity reflection. Excuse me. Decline in society, workers are demoralized by capitalist society and are caught up in a process that leads to crime and violence. Working people committed crime because there was a slow death, starvation, and speedy one and hands of the law. The brutality capitalist system, he believes, turns workers into animals like creatures. Out will or the Orn Willem Bonger 1876-1940 is famous Marxist socialist concept of crime causation, which published in 1916. Bonger believed that crime is a social and not biological origin. But exception of few special cases, crime lies within the boundaries of normal human behavior. According to Bonger, no act naturally immortal or criminal. He viewed crimes anti-social acts reflect current morality. Let's proceed to number 5. Biopsychosocial theories of crime causation. Biopsychosocial criminology and psychology are multidisciplinary perspective that attempts to understand criminal behavior and related outcomes like antisocial behavior and its consequences by considering the interactions between biological behavior. Letter A. Biopsychosocial model of crime causation. An integration or combination both the biopsycho and the socio-bio components of this theory examine aspects of biology that influence health. This might include things like brain changes, the genetics or function of major body organs such as liver, kidneys, even motor system. The psycho components of the theory examine psychological components, things like thoughts, emotion, or behavior. The solo components of biopsychosocial model examine social factors that might influence health of an individual's, things like our interaction with others or out culture of or our economic status. This kind of biopsychosocial model of crime causation, ito po yung nagbabago yung interaction mo sa, for example, sa isang kaibigan mo, nagbabago yung behavior, nagbabago yung reaction through your dahil dito sa isang biopsychosocial model of crime causation. Let's proceed to moral insanity. A criminal responsibility. Letter B. Moral insanity and criminal responsibility. Moral insanity was term used to describe persons who were normal in all respect except that something was wrong with a part of the brain. Regulates effective responses. Isaac Ray, credited America's first forensic psychiatrist, was interested throughout his life in the application of psychiatrist principle to the law. Henry Maudsley, a brilliant English medical professor, shared Ray's concern about criminal responsibility. According to Maudsley, some may consider either insane or criminal according to the standpoint which they are looked at. Sometimes we can see a person that an ordinary and not an ordinary person, or yung makikita mo yung isang tao na parang isang dugyot na tao, yan ay isang matatawag nating immoral or insanity kind of criminal responsibility. Letter C, premenstrual syndrome. Refers to onset of the menstrual cycle that triggers excessive amounts of female sex hormones which affect antisocial aggressive behavior. The link between premenstrual syndrome and the delinquency was first popularized more than 25 years ago by Katarina Dorothea K. Dalton, whose studies of English women, 156 newly adult female prisoners, indicated that these females are more likely commit suicide and be aggressive and otherwise antisocial just before or during menstruation. So yun pala, yung mga babae pala are more aggressive or mas prone sila sa isang suicidal na situation. Dahil din ito naapektahan din sila dahil sa kanilang menstruation. Yun, nakakagawa sila or nakaka-exist sila ng idea or isang commitment na mag-suicide. Let's proceed to letter H, Fishbein, I-Her study. Selected studies on biology of antisocial behavior concludes that there is an effect of an association between elevated levels of female aggression and menstruation. The battered child syndrome. This syndrome was coined by Dr. C. Henry Kempe and his colleagues in a landmark article, The Battered Child Syndrome, published in 1962. The syndrome does not establish incapability of a person, rather it simply indicates that child found with serious repeated injury has not suffered those injuries by accidental means. Battered child syndrome, a medical diagnosis based on evidence indication that a child has been subjected to a pattern of serious explained or abuse. The battered child syndrome, ito po yung inaabuso yung mga bata. Just like how today, nakikita natin sa Rafi Tulfo, nakikita natin merong mga bata na ina-abuse sa kanilang parents. Nang dahil ito sa kapabayaan sa kanilang parents, hindi na nila natutukuyan, hindi na nila nakikita na yung anak pala nila ay nasasaktan at nasusosobrahan nila sa pagpalo at pagdisiplina. At ang letter E na naman ay battered woman syndrome. Meron din ito silang similarity sa isang child battered syndrome. It is a psychological term used to describe women who are stuck within or have recently left a violent relationship characterized by cycle of violence. BWS is a modeled after traumatic stress syndrome suffered by a Vietnam veterans and later applied to people victimized by rape. Lenore Walker 1984 refers to a battered woman syndrome as a sort of learned helplessness. For example, battered woman syndrome, marami tayong nakikita, naririnig na mga kwento na ng mga lalaki na inaabuso yung mga babae. Just like for example, yung babae na ni-rape ng walang dahilan, ni-rape siya kasi naglalakad lang siya sa isang kalsada at nararamdaman niya yung trauma, stress because walang rason, wala naman siyang katalik, pero na-rape siya sa isang lalaki na kahit na di niya kilala. 'Yon ang isang example of battered woman syndrome. F, postpartum stress syndrome and postpartum psychosis. Postpartum stress syndrome causes feeling of anxiety, self-doubt. The woman wants to become a perfect mother, a wife, but at the same time she feels exhausted and overwhelmed. It characterized by sadness, which sweeps into a woman, pours and permeates her life. Postpartum depression can come without warning. A woman does not have to suffer from a baby blues or postpartum stress syndrome. First, fact, a woman can go through a normal childbirth and recover completely when suddenly PPD strikes like a bolt lightning. Postpartum psychosis, multiple factors uncommon, with only 1,000 women developing PPP within few days of childbirth. It can dramatically affect everyone involved. Some new mothers suffering psychosis maybe have been hospitalized short-term or even rare. Are unfortunate few do not receive the right treatment in time may harm themselves or their child. Sign hearing voices or sounds no one else hears. Thoughts of hurting oneself or baby. No sleep in 48 hours. Cannot care for baby or self. Rapid weight loss without trying. She could not control her thoughts if someone else control her. This kind of syndrome is a postpartum stress syndrome. Marami na tayong kaso na ganito na yung mga babae natin or yung mga babae na nagdadala ng isang bata or isang baby na pagkatapos nila mga anak may isang meron silang isang yung pag-aanak nila naapektuhan yung pag-iisip nila. Minsan meron ding ganon na stress, meron silang depression, feeling nila na unperfect sila, feeling nila mandami silang flaws. At yun ang nagpupush na maging insecure sila at magiging depressed yung ating mga parents or yung mga mother na nagbubuntis. Yan yung postpartum stress syndrome and postpartum psychosis. Let's proceed to the last topic that we have is political social conflict theories of crime causation. An alternative conception of political theories of crime causation that they are characterized by their emphasis on social conflict and power relationship insofar as the criminal justice system is seen an instrument of political control or repression and politicization. All crime is implied. Letter A. Marxist criminology views a crime as a function of capitalist mode of production. B. Conflict theory views crime as outcomes of class struggle. The classes are struggling here are the upper, middle, lower class have not conflict works to promote crime by creating social atmosphere in which law is a mechanism in controlling dissatisfied have not a member of society while the wealthy maintain their position of power. Also crime defined power. William Byunger, everyone may desire wealth, but it is not only the most privileged people with the most capital who can enjoy luxuries and disadvantages. Ralph Feindorf argues the modern society organized what we called imperatively coordination association journal was one of the adopted conflict theory in criminology argued that crime can be also explained by social conflict. Letter C. Social reality of crime. Sociologist Richard Quiney embraced a conflict model of crime who interface belief about power society and criminality into a theory referred to a social reality of crime. According to him, criminal definition of law represents interest those who hold power in society. D. Left realism. Left realism theory is the most connected and writing of British scholars and John Leon. Jack Young in 1984 worked What is to be done about law and order by taking more realistic approach, saying street criminals prey on the poor, thus making poor doubtly abused first by the capitalist system and then by the member by the own class. Postmodern theory focuses on a critical analysis of communication and language in legal beliefs, and that is language is value laden and can promote in the same sort of inequities that are present the rest of the social structure. F. Constitutive theory, Greg Barak and Stuart Henry defines crime as application of harm to others. People who are defined as communicating criminal acts are at the same time being unequal or disrespected. They are rendered powerless to maintain express their humanity. Letter G. Conservatism, liberalism theory. Conservative ideologies assumes that idea society in inching authority is unquestioned. The hierarchy of wisdom, virtue accepted by all base recognized natural inequalities. Liberalism assumes that idea society is one of there is equality of opportunity and consensus to accept difference rewards the competition of fair competition. Radicalism, letter H, main notion is replaced. Defective societies, whether left or right, radical ideology envision the legal society. One is people's natural creative freedom and loving are able to do as they. People is in going about their peacefulness business without interference by anyone, especially those claiming or representing some presumed higher authority. Letter I. Identity fusion theory, defined as visceral feeling of oneness with a group of the associated with increased permeability and boundary between a personal social self. It was created by William B. Swan and Jr. Michael Burmster. The blending of individual personal salt and social salt of the group that has attempted to explain why a person engaged political participation. Reference, Book of the Theorist Crime Causation. Author Glenda C. Panunggaling, PhD, and Jerry. J. Cano, PhD, first edition. Maraming salamat, Miss Levy M. Bero. Thank you, ma'am, and God bless. That's all. Thank you.